And I'm going to apologize in advance for the meowing of cats or barking of dogs over the next couple minutes because it may happen. So welcome everyone to our LISSA Alumni Speaker Series. And this is our first one for this academic year, and we're so glad to have all of you with us. I'm Sarah Burton. I'm the secretary for LISSA this year. And tonight, we are so happy to welcome Jennifer Resor. Did I get that right, Jennifer?
It's Resor. It's fine.
Resor, you asked me, I wrote it down, and then I got it wrong.
It's fine.
How things are going these days. Whicker, I got that part right.
Yes, you got that right.
So Jennifer is actually the former president of LISSA at UNC Greensboro, which is really cool. And she is an associate professor and the head of research services at Radford University's McConnell Library, where she's been employed since 2010. Her BA in English Literature and MLIS are both from UNCG. She is co-chair of the Innovative Library Classroom Conference and has served on many Virginia Library Association conference committees. She has served on the VLA Executive Committee for the past 5 years, and she is currently serving as VLA President and past President. So we are so happy to welcome you, Jennifer, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for inviting me to come. I really enjoyed my time at UNCG. I was there from August of 2008 until May of 2010. So the job I got right out of library school was at Radford University. I was very, very fortunate. I graduated in May and I started my job at Radford in September of that same year. But yeah, no, like I said, my experience at UNCG was quite amazing. I met a lot of really great people. There were a lot of amazing professors. Dr. Nora Bird was one of them. She was my advisor while I was there. Also, Dr. Jim Carmichael. He was very integral in in my classes, and Dr. Julie Hirschberger. Just such amazing professors, and I really, really enjoyed my time at UNCG, and it really helped prepare me for where I am today. Another thing that was really important to just kind of where I am right now was I was a reference intern in Jackson Library, and Linda Kellum, who I believe is now at Cornell University, and Amy Harris, I believe, who is still there in Jackson, they were the supervisors when I was a reference intern. So I was a reference intern for about 1.5 years with them. And I always credited the reference internship I always said that was exactly what helped me get the job at Radford University. So when the job I got right out of library school was a reference and instruction librarian at Radford. But funny story, all of my coursework and electives were in cataloging. And I took the reference internship at the encouragement of my husband, who is actually also a librarian. And he was like, no, you need to be well-rounded, because when the job came open and a friend of mine was like, oh, you should apply for it. I was like, oh, I want to be a cataloger. I'm not going to apply for the reference and instruction, the reference intern in Jackson. And my husband was like, no, you're going to apply for it because you need lots of experience, because you don't know that you're going to be able to get a cataloging job when you graduate. And lo and behold, when I graduated, I applied for tons of cataloging jobs, didn't even get phone interviews for any of them. The majority of them wanted like 3 to 5 years experience. And the experience I got in library school, they basically said was not valid. So I ended up applying for reference and instruction positions as well. And I got the job at Radford. And it was really amazing. So I was the reference and instruction librarian at Radford pretty much from September 2010 until I believe it was February of 2018. And then I became the coordinator of library instruction at Radford. And then in February of 2021, so February of this year, I became interim head of research services. I guess kind of due to the pandemic and everything that was going on, our head of the department, he decided to go ahead and retire. He was of age and he had enough time in. And I think he had initially he wasn't going to retire, but then Alex, after the pandemic, they had us all coming back on campus. He was like, nah, I'm good. And so he decided to retire. And it was kind of right place, right time. And I interviewed for the job. Well, they named me interim head, and then they did an internal search for the position. And I applied for the job, interviewed for the job, and then got the job and officially became head of the department in June 1st of this year. So I've only been doing this job for about coming up on 4 months now. And but even when I started my time at UNCG, I knew that I eventually wanted to be the head of the department. I would like to eventually be either a dean or a director of an academic library. I always knew I wanted to work at an academic library. And I used to joke in school, like, with my classmates, I'd be like, oh, I know I want to be an academic librarian because my husband is a public librarian and I know what they have to put up with. So, so yeah, I always knew that I wanted to be an academic. And I loved going to college. I loved the university. I loved UNCG. I also got my undergraduate degree there in English literature. And I just loved the atmosphere, the learning atmosphere, I loved helping the students. And so I knew that I wanted to work in academic libraries. Excuse me. So I always had kind of that focus. And of course, I wanted to be a cataloger, but another thing about that, one thing that was always funny was Linda Kellum, who was one of the internship supervisors for Jackson at the time I was there. She was always like, oh, no, you're an instruction librarian. You are not a cataloger. And I was like, are you sure about that? I don't know. I don't think that's really true, but I guess she was right. And I did later tell her that she was right. I wrote her a nice little letter and was like, yeah, you were right. This is what I was supposed to do. So part of the thing, see, I've always been considered an extremely organized person. That's why a lot of people always wanted me to work with projects, because I could organize the project and it would run really smoothly. And so I didn't get to become a cataloger, but I was drawn to planning a lot of conferences. And I've done a lot of conference planning in Virginia. I was fortunate enough to, my instruction supervisor at Radford was Candace Benji Small. Some of you may have heard of her. She's got a book that is, oh goodness, New Instruction Librarian Workbook, I believe is what it's called. She wrote it with Rebecca K. Miller, and I know been used a lot in instruction classes, and she really trained me to be an instruction librarian, and she was really amazing to do that. And one of the things that she was one of the founders of the Innovative Library Classroom Conference, which is a conference that started at Radford University when Candace was there. Candace is now the head of research at William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. But the Innovative Library Classroom started there, and so kind of how it came about, I don't know that I've ever told this story, but how it came about was I had been attending Metrolina. I started attending the Metrolina Information Literacy Conference when I was a student at UNCG. And it was, of course, it was in Charlotte. And I continued to attend it my first few years when I was a librarian at Radford. And Candace came with me one year to attend it. And we were going to the different sessions, and, Metrolina was always so amazing. And I remember having a conversation with Candace afterwards. She was like, we could do this in Virginia. And so it kind of sparked something in her imagination. So her and actually Rebecca Kate Miller, who is now at Penn State, she was at Virginia Tech at the time that the Innovative Library Classroom began. The two of them got together and they planned out the Innovative Library Classroom. They brought me on to help organize registration and the programming end of all that. And So we started that in 2014, I believe is the first year we had it. We started off allowing 75 people to attend. And registration, I believe that first year sold out in a few days. And then the next year we kept it at 75. Registration filled up in less than an hour. And that was kind of the trend here, there on out. And we then expanded it to 100, and registration was still filling up in like less than half a day. The conference, we had the conference online this past year. It was canceled in 2020. It was supposed to have happened in June, and it got canceled because of the pandemic. We didn't feel like we had enough time to do it justice and flip it to online. But for 2021, it happened in, I believe it happened at the end of April, and we had it all online. It was just a really great, it was a great conference. We're planning on having it in person, fingers crossed. Next year, it'll be at William and Mary, because it has moved to William. When Candace moved to William and Mary, the conference moved to William and Mary. I've also planned a lot of VLA conferences. I've been on 4 VLA conference committees. I've been volunteer coordinator for 2, and I have chaired one of the VLA conferences, and now I'm currently on the VLA conference committee as president. And I feel like just planning conferences, it's something I really, really enjoy. I just really like bringing organizing the programming and getting the speakers and the presenters and everything, and just coordinating all that. And I feel like being involved with your state association, I was involved with NCLA when I was in North Carolina, when I was a library student, and attended one of the NCLA conferences while I was a library student. And I just think it's so important. It helps you connect with other librarians across the state. These are typically people that you're going to be working a lot with. You can network with them. You can bounce ideas off of each other. Yeah, it really helps you to build your network. You can conduct research with these other librarians. You can investigate different, teaching practices or whatever your wheelhouse is. And it just really helps you. And it also helps you when you go to, and you want to move around and you want to find another job. It really just, I feel like the networking is just so important. We're planning on having our VLA conference in person this year. We have decided that, even short of the governor of Virginia announcing that he is shutting everything down again, it's going forward. And it's in Richmond this year. At the end of October, I believe it's October 26th through the 29th. I believe that's correct. Yeah, 27th through the 29th. It's 27th through the 29th. So yeah, I just feel like it's really, really important to be involved with the state association. I haven't been as involved with ALA. I was involved a little bit with ALA toward the beginning of my career. And I actually attended ACRL's teacher track immersion in July of 2012. That was in Burlington, Vermont, I believe, that year. And I attended, does everyone know what ACRL immersion is? Is anyone not familiar with it?
I am not familiar with that.
Okay. So ACRL's immersion is, I'm assuming they still do it. It was something that you could do. It was like a very intense training that you could undertake. And so the one I attended, it was for teacher track, so people who were instruction librarians. And then they did a program track at the same time. And that was for people who were like heads of departments or coordinated library instruction programs. And so I attended, it's a 5-day training. So basically we arrived on a Monday to the college. It was at Champlain College in Vermont, the one I attended, and we were assigned to cohorts. So there were various people who were in charge, and they were kind of like our lead person, and we would go through various trainings. Like we went through trainings on interacting with students and constructing learning objectives, and trainings on just various things like that. Char Booth was my faculty person for my cohort, which was really wonderful because I had read her book that had come out shortly before then, and I'm going to get it wrong and I'm going to feel really embarrassed. It's Reflective Teaching. Oh goodness, this is going to drive me crazy if I cannot get this correct. I'm going to have to look this up because this is going to drive me crazy if I don't get this correct. Reflective Teaching, Effective Learning, Instructional Literacy for Library Educators. So that was the name of her book. And I had read it because I was suffering from massive imposter syndrome when I got to Radford University, because I had gone to library school to be a cataloger. And here I was, an instruction librarian. And I remember Candace, who was the instruction team leader at the time and was in charge of the instruction part, she had suggested I read Char's book. Char's book had just come out, and so I read it, and it made me realize that I could do this job, and it was really, really amazing. And so I kind of fangirled on her slightly that first day there, because we got there Monday at I guess we got there Sunday afternoon. And so we had like a short, like little reception where you just kind of mingled, and there was they had hors d'oeuvres, like just finger foods and stuff and drinks. And I kind of walked over to her and just fangirled on her a little bit. I was like, I read your book and it changed my life, because it made me realize that I could do this, because there was times that I really did not think I could do this job at all. I was like, why did these people hire me? They have no idea what they have done. But her book was really, really helpful. And I think I really embarrassed her that night. And she even told me later on, she's like, I always never know how to react when people come up to me and say these things. But she was wonderful. And that immersion was amazing. Like, it really helped kind of solidify my teaching philosophy and, my pedagogy, moving forward for my instruction. And because, again, as I've mentioned, all of my electives, all of my coursework that wasn't the core stuff you have to take was in cataloging. And all my practicum, other than my reference internship, I had an internship and a practicum also in cataloging. And so I didn't take any information literacy classes in library school. And so that really helped me to kind of, shore up my knowledge base, I guess you could say, for information literacy. So it was really, really wonderful. And I was really fortunate that my library paid for it, because immersion is not cheap. And so my library paid for it for me to go. And that's one thing. My library has been so supportive of professional development and anything like that. And I feel like I'm talking in circles, and I apologize for that. But so kind of how I went from being focused on participating in ALA and how I kind of switched to VLA was everyone in our department was so active in professional development, so active in different library associations, that we kind of had to pick and choose. So not everybody could go to ALA, not everybody could go to ACRL when it was going on, because we just couldn't swing it. Especially ACRL would always happen in March, and that was kind of a peak instruction time for us during the spring semester. And so the head of our instruction team leader, she was like, we need to kind of split this up. Some of you need to do ALA stuff and others of you can do VLA stuff. And so it just so happened that some of the people in our department had presentations accepted at ALA one year. And so I had a presentation accepted at VLA. And so that's how we kind of started splitting it up. So I started attending more VLA stuff. They started attending more ALA stuff. And so that's how I got really entrenched in ALA. And I just met a lot of really great people. And it really helped me. Actually, one of the first library presentations I ever did was with some people I went to library school with. Kathy Shields, who I think who is currently at Wake Forest. She graduated the year before me with her NLIS, and one of the first conference presentations I ever did was with her and another librarian, and that was at VLA in 2011, and that was really wonderful. So again, like just people who you're going to library school with, or people you can network with different places, it's just all about just making connections with people and finding people who have common interest and common beliefs in kind of library land with you. And I feel like I have done a lot of talking. Does anyone have any questions for me? Is there anything that I didn't talk about that you wanted me to cover?
Jennifer, that was a lot of really good information. Sounds to me like what I'm hearing is your advice to students would be make those connections,
Yes,
network, and join those professional organizations, the professional development, like the VLA. And you said you were part of, did you join NCLA while you were a student?
oh yeah, no, so what I did while I was a student, I joined NCLA, VLA, the Maryland Delaware Library Association. I joined the Pennsylvania Library Association. I joined the South Carolina Library Association. So I pretty much joined, I joined all the associations for states that I would look for jobs in. Because as we know, North Carolina has several ALA accredited library schools. And so getting a job in North Carolina can be extremely competitive. And so I kind of knew that when I went to library school, my husband and I had discussed it, we were probably going to leave the state. And so I had applied for jobs in all those states and just ended up in Virginia. Virginia still to this day does not have an ALA accredited library school. ODU is currently working to get accreditation, but they don't have it yet. So Virginia was a really good place to kind of come and look for a job. And so I joined all those because as a student, you can join them really cheap. I think when I was a student, it was like $15. I'm not entirely sure how much it is now. But I think it was like $15 when I was a student to join all these different library associations. I paid like $15 a piece to join them as a student.
That is such a great idea, to join the associations in all the states that you're looking at applying.
Yeah, and lots of times, a lot of them would send out job ads, or you would, they would tell you when they had new job postings, because just for example, VLA does like what they call job line. And so it's a great place to go to their website and look at all the jobs that are posted. So it's just another way to kind of help, and get your bang for your buck. So yeah.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
I was gonna say, you've got a couple other questions here. Diane was asking, is conference planning all volunteer work, or are there paid positions?
In my experience, conference planning has been 100% volunteer work. There are no paid positions. It's just something that you're kind of like you would be passionate about. It's something you want to experience. And yeah, the only thing so I've been on so many conference committees. When I became president, one of the things I spoke with the executive director of Virginia Library Association. Her name is LISSA Varga. We worked really closely together. And I was like, we've got to at least give a discount to people who are on the conference committee because they put in so much work. And so that was one of the things I implemented as president, like going forward, if you were on the conference committee, you would get a $75 discount on your conference registration. But yeah, there are no paid positions for that. The only person who gets paid, like in VLA, is our executive director and her assistant. And that's because they do all the work of the association and they're already getting paid for their other work. So they also work on the conference, of course. And so they're getting paid for that. But yeah, there are no paid positions. Yeah, that's so Candace, who was Candace Benji-Small, who was one of the founders of the Innovative Library Classroom. We've always joked that whenever this library gig no longer works out for us, we're going to start consulting to plan conferences because we both like to do it so much. So yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, there are no paid positions. I wish there were.
Another question I believe you mentioned 2 books when you were talking. One was Reflective Teaching, Effective Learning. I dropped that one in the chat. What was the other book that you?
Yeah, I am pulling it up right now because I can never remember the name. Yeah, The New Instruction Librarian is what it's called. Hold on one second.
You wouldn't mind dropping that in the chat?
Yeah, I'm pulling that up right now. Here it is. All right.
Then while you're looking that up, another question that came through from Molly, could you talk about how instruction has been going through the pandemic? And do you have any tips for those who are interested in going into instruction librarian work?
Yeah, so instruction during the pandemic was really interesting. As many of you probably realize, on like kind of like the flip side of it. So in March, you know, like, so we were on spring break when it came down that everything was shutting down and we were flipping completely to online. So we had a lot of instruction classes already scheduled to be in person. So basically what we had to do is we had to flip as best we could. We had to just start using Zoom. And so we started teaching on Zoom, and of course we already created like a Libguide for every class, or we had like other, you know, worksheets and different materials. And so we kind of had to flip it just like that. We were also asked to help the Center of Innovative Teaching and Learning on our campus was tasked with helping professors flip their classes. And so we were also asked to help them with that work. And so we had 3 days of workshops where basically we sat with professors and helped them, because it's, goodness gracious, you would not believe the amount of professors we had on campus who really did not use our learning management system that much. And so we had to help them try to start using the learning management system. And we use Desire to Learn at Radford University. And so I think the biggest thing is just recognizing that online instruction, especially if you're used to teaching in person, takes a lot longer to plan, because we do a lot of active learning in our library instruction classrooms, and that doesn't always translate well to Zoom. And so we had to kind of learn how to do that and what was the best way to approach that. So we had to do a lot of, during the spring, it was a lot on the fly because we didn't have time to prepare for it. It was like, oh, we're on spring break. And the next thing we knew, it was, oh, we're all going online. So now you need to flip all your classes online. And they extended spring break a week. So they made spring break 2 weeks long instead of 1 week long. So they extended it a week. So you basically had a week to plan everything and flip everything online. And so we did our best. We basically did the best we could. We found that most professors wanted to cancel their library instruction classes because they were so overwhelmed with how to get all that content into an online format that they just didn't have time to let anyone else take up any time in their class. So for a lot of those, we sent them just Libguides. We sent them quick videos that we created talking about different topics that they wanted covered. So over the summer, we had time to actually kind of do some research and, you know, talk to other instruction librarians and what was working and what wasn't working. And so when the fall rolled around, we decided to keep all library instruction online because our campus was doing what they called like a hybrid. So classes might meet in person one day, but then they would be online the other 2 days if it was like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. And so we kept all library instruction online, and I feel like we did a lot better in the fall. We were a little bit better prepared. We had the summer to prepare. But I think it's just recognizing it's going to take more time. You're going to have to rethink active learning exercises. You're going to have to rethink how you can use those. We used a lot of Kahoot. Like we were just Kahooting everything. Like we had if we ever wanted to gamify a class, we just used Kahoot. And so we got really good at using Kahoot. But just trying to find alternatives to those active learning exercises that you would do in person, because in person, you don't even have to think about it. Like you get a worksheet and you do this, and the students are there, and you can get body language, and you can actually have visual cues. And so you can see, oh, the students are really getting this, or, oh, the students aren't getting this. I need to stop for a second and reassess and maybe re-explain. In Zoom, you don't get that. Half of the students didn't have their cameras on, or their cameras weren't working, or they didn't have an internet connection that was fast enough to support video. So everybody in the class had to cut off their video. So it was really hard. A lot of times you were just talking to, it almost felt like a wall, and you didn't really understand or know if anybody was listening or understood what you were talking about. So it was really difficult at times. But I think all we could do was just try to engage with them as best we could, engage with the professors. And yeah, for this fall semester, we went back in person. So we're doing a mix of Zoom online classes, and we're doing a mix of in person. I feel like it's working better. I don't know if we're just getting more used to doing it. But yeah, it's been difficult. And second part of the question, do you have any tips for those interested in going to instruction librarian work? And the best advice I can give you is just try to, actually there is some good advice I can give you. So I'm currently searching for I'm in the middle of a search right now for an instruction librarian that actually is going to kind of backfill my old position, replacing it with just an instruction librarian. And one thing I can really tip if you want to do it is, when you're writing your cover letter, take the job ad and look at the required qualifications and even the preferred qualifications, and address all of them that you can. And if you're looking for an instruction position, definitely mention the ACRL framework for information literacy. I can't tell you how many cover letters we had. Over 100 people apply for this job, and I can't tell you how many cover letters I read, and it was an instruction position. I would say probably about 50% of the cover letters I read did not even mention the ACRL framework for information literacy. And this is an instruction position. So I think it's just so important how you craft your cover letter when you're going for these instruction positions. You want to address the qualifications that are mentioned in the job ad, and you want to mention the ACRL framework for information literacy. It's really important, and it really will make your cover letter stand out. And I honestly was really surprised at how many people did not do these things. One of the qualifications, seriously, one of the required qualifications for my job, because I wanted to keep it open for people who were fresh out of library school, was just an interest in information literacy. And how many people did not express an interest in information literacy in these cover letters? It was surprising. So that would definitely be a tip I would definitely give. Does anyone have any other questions?
That's such a great tip about the cover letter, coming from the corporate world and having never worked in a library.
Mm-hmm.
That is just so important that you know what those job qualifications are and acknowledge the importance of them, because the person that wrote that job description didn't do it for their health. They want to know that that you take it seriously. This is really what we're looking for. So that's a great point, Jennifer.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, they have this form cover letter that they put out, and I mean, form cover letters are great to kind of give you like a structure, but you need to insert these other extra things for each job because each job ad is going to be a little different and the qualifications are going to be a little different. But like I said, if you're applying for a bunch of instruction positions, of course, you're going to mention the framework. You're going to mention the ACRL framework for information literacy. So you can leave have like a, you know, kind of like a stock letter for that has that kind of stuff in it. But then you need to like really definitely put all this stuff, you know, into it. And yeah, if you're and Julie, if you're going into academic, it's all about ACRL, Association for College and Research Libraries. I mean, they make the standards, and you really have got to think about what they're doing. Because like even like me, I'm not excessively involved with ALA or ACRL, but I still keep up to date on the standards and like what ALA is doing and what ACRL is doing, because I mean they're the national organizations, and it's really important to keep up with that.
I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'll ask one, just programs specific to UNCG. Did you have a favorite class or one that really stood out to you?
My favorite class was the reference class that Dr. Carmichael taught. His class, so my program was entirely in person. My degree was I took maybe 2 online classes my 2 years at UNCG. For my library degree. And my favorite class was by far Dr. Carmichael's reference class, because he was, do y'all know Dr. Carmichael? I think he's retired now, isn't he? Or is he still teaching the reference classes?
I don't think I've had any class. Oh, he still teaches 600.
He still teaches 600. Okay.
Gotcha.
So his like it was like the general reference class, and he was just so much fun, and I don't think he would mind. He was just such a character. Like he made class so much fun. So the intro class when I was there was taught by Julie Hirschberger. So that was the foundation class, which I believe was 600. I want to say Dr. Carmichael's class was 620, maybe. Oh yeah, history of libraries. Yeah, I never took one of his history of libraries classes, but I'm sure they were a lot of fun. But he was just he just made it so much fun. I mean, like, it's like a reference class. So he would give us these like impossible reference questions to answer, and we would have to do them. But he was a lot of fun. He made class a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Dr. Bird's collection management class. That was a lot of fun. I think we had to come up with a collection development policy for a fake library. That was a lot of fun. Trying to think like what else I enjoyed cataloging class, but I think I was the only person in the class that actually liked the cataloging class. But yeah, I really enjoyed all the classes I took with like Dr. Bird and Dr. Carmichael, and yeah, and I was also a graduate assistant while I was there, and I worked with Dr. Sandra Andrews. She's not there anymore. She was one of the school library professors. And because actually the very first conference I ever worked on was that ASL conference in Charlotte in 2009 that I referenced, that we got the creators of Unshelved, the library cartoon, to speak to the students. I helped her coordinate volunteers for that national conference. And that was my first experience with a conference. Because I was her graduate assistant and she was in charge of the volunteers for that conference. And so I was helping her with that. And no, I do not get to work with cataloging at all. I have no cataloging whatsoever. Our library is definitely too big for that. So I leave the cataloging to the catalogers who are in our collection and technical services. But yeah. What technologies do I use? So I've already mentioned Desire to Learn. Desire to Learn is our learning management system. We use, so when we create videos for classes, we use Vimeo to host the videos. We got a Vimeo, a pro Vimeo account for the department, and we use those. I'm a Mac person, I'm an Apple person. So I use a program called ScreenFlow, which is amazing, but it's only for Macs. That's what I use to create the videos. My PC counterparts in my department, they use Camtasia, of course, but ScreenFlow, in my opinion, is so much easier and so much more intuitive to use. So all of us who have Macs, we buy a ScreenFlow license. And so we all use ScreenFlow because half the department has Macs and the other half has PCs. And the PC people use Camtasia. I also use a lot of Prezi. I'm a big Prezi fan, just to kind of mix things up. Oh yeah, and ScreenFlow has amazing editing capabilities, I agree. But I use Prezi just to kind of mix up. If I get bored with PowerPoint after a while or Google Slides, I'll flip to Prezi depending on what, the class is, just to mix it up. Of course, we use Libguides. We create a LibGuide for every instruction class that comes in. We also have program LibGuides. So Radford has a lot of health sciences programs. We recently merged with Jefferson College of Health Sciences about 2 years ago. They became what's now called Radford University Carilion. And because Carilion is the big hospital system up here. And so we use LibGuides and we use different things like that. And so we create program LibGuides. So we have like a doctorate of physical therapy LibGuide, and then we have like the doctorate of nursing practice LibGuide, so the DNP and the DPT and different things like that. We also, and I mentioned Kahoot. We use Kahoot a lot. We use Padlet. Padlet is another really great kind of collaborative tool that you can use in classrooms to have to get students to give you kind of instant feedback. We kind of discovered Padlet. Well, we knew about Padlet, but we really discovered a great use for it once we started teaching online and we needed more things for active learning. We started using Padlet to get like immediate feedback from students, and it could be anonymous. The students loved that because, lots of times they don't feel comfortable speaking up in class, and this allowed them to be anonymous.
Jennifer, I have to mention that I love your Twitter.
Oh
Your
gosh.
Death Star Librarian at Darth Librarian. That is fantastic. Yeah. I have a cat named Princess Leia. So
I'm an enormous Star Wars fan. Like it's
Same.
really, yeah, it's really bad. And so like I'm currently surrounded by Star Wars figures. I'm in my office, and the office I have. Well, we had like a junk room, and so I turned my junk room like into my office when we all went, we had to start working from home. And so yeah, I'm like surrounded by Star Wars stuff currently. Like I could pick up. I have like
that's fantastic.
I'm surrounded by it. So yeah, that's where the whole Darth Librarian thing came from.
I love it.
I see a Darth Vader. I see a Darth Vader either suitcase or backpack behind you, Jennifer.
It's my suitcase. Yeah, I was in Richmond last weekend for VLA executive committee, and so I haven't put it up yet. So it's just sitting out here. and that's probably one thing it made me think, you might wonder why I'm currently president and past president of the Virginia Library Association, because that's not normal. So what happened was I was supposed to be president through October of 2020. And the person who was president-elect, she took a job in New Jersey. She got an opportunity to be the director of the Newark, New Jersey public library system. And so she took the job and left Virginia. And so they asked me to serve as president for another year, but they also needed someone to be past president still, because past president has specific duties. So I've been doing both jobs this past year. And so thankfully in October, the end of October, I get to be just past president after that. So that's why I'm both president and past president currently.
And that means we appreciate you even more being here tonight, because it sounds like you have a lot going on.
I have a lot going on. Yeah, I'm also, I was working with some other librarians who we did a huge national survey on sexual harassment in academic libraries. And we presented at ACRL in 2019 on that. And then we just had an article published about it in college and research libraries. It got published in July of this year. And so, yeah, actually today I spent a good chunk of the day we're getting ready to launch our sexual harassment survey aimed at public librarians. So I've been working on that a lot today too. So yeah, I have got a lot going on currently.
Well, what a great project to be working on and giving voice to that. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Once the whole Me Too movement came about and other people, whether I'm collaborating with on this, we started looking around for data on academic librarians and sexual harassment, and there was a lot of anecdotal data, but no like really serious research had been done on it. And so we adapted the sexual experiences questionnaire, which they call it the SEQ, and just started to try to collect data on it to see exactly what was going on with that. And so once we did academic librarians, we knew we wanted to do public librarians too, so we could kind of compare and contrast and see if there were similarities or if there were differences. So yeah, so we just started the IRB process for that, which is lots of fun. So, and we're at 3 different universities. And so we have to get IRB approval at each university. And we exchanged several emails today trying to figure out what all we needed to submit to each university to do that. So yeah, that was part of my day to day.
Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing work. And if nobody else has any questions, we would just like to thank you for your time and the wonderful conversation. So many great points about the cover letter and the networking and the professional development, and what an amazing career you've had. And I have no doubt you're going to be running the show sooner rather than later. I'm hoping to stay in contact with you and say,
oh, absolutely. And here, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. So like, seriously, if y'all have questions or need anything, need to talk to me, shoot me an email. I'd be more than happy to. Like I said, I absolutely adored my time at UNCG. It always is going to hold an extremely special place in my heart. And anything I can do to help, I would be more than happy to.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We appreciate your time and great conversation.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.